supporting us from day one. So I'm very happy to talk to the founders of this amazing graphic art platform, Kunal, Arjun, and Jazz. And all three of you were actually brought up in different places or in different countries. So tell me a bit more about how you guys met and how this whole thing started.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my background, and then I'll pass it over to Jazz and Arjun. I think it really helps us at Culture Shop to have a bit of a global feel from us coming from different backgrounds. It really helps us on curation and having an understanding of both the local and global aesthetic in what we do. But my background is from Zimbabwe in Africa. I grew up there and studied at the London College of Printing, where we met in the UK during the Asian underground kind of scene. I think that was early 2000s. And I guess I've always been interested in Indian design, graphic design, illustration, and the power of these vehicles. And it felt like a natural progression to move to India to kind of see this work flourish. It's kind of the homeland. It's kind of where the work is being, it's the source right now. And yeah, that's kind of a little bit about my background, but I'll pass you over to Arjun and Jazz as well.
Yeah, I grew up in India and went to school here, went to study in the US for college, and ended up sticking around there and working in the US for many years. I lived in New York and worked at Mars Chocolates, which is a fast-moving consumer goods company, fantastic brand, M&M's, Snickers, all that kind of stuff. And Jazz and I met in 2002 and kind of hit it off. Got married. Got married a year later. And then I was asked to come and help set up the Mars Chocolate business in India, which I did from 2007 to 2010, and decided to leave the corporate world after that. In New York, I grew up as a sportsman in New York. The arts really captured my fancy and spent a lot of time. I lived a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde existence, working and then enjoying myself and everything that New York had to offer. But was really friends with a lot of creative people. And when I set out outside of Mars, the objective was to try and develop creative economies to help artists of different kinds. Did a couple of gigs in music for a couple of years after Mars, and then decided to do Culture Shop, something that Jazz and I had talked about in 2008 when we were in Hyderabad. And the idea was to really support, to help graphic artists who are emerging, monetize their work. And I was looking for an able partner to be able to go on this journey with. And Jazz had run into Kunal after he'd come to India, and brought him back home. And Kunal and I sat and talked for about 6 hours straight. And those were sort of the beginning moments of the formation of what we see here today.
Yeah, and I was born in England, grew up first part of my childhood in Toronto. At that time, now Toronto has a huge South Asian community, but at that time, I was at a school that was maybe 98% just Caucasian Canadians mostly. And so my sister and I were the only South Asians at that time. It wasn't until we moved to California that I got a little bit more exposure, but other than outside of family, I mean. But I grew up as an artist and did that just, my free time. I've been in, like, what inspired me the most was street art and the skate culture in California. So I got there when I was 10, made friends with skaters by the time I was 12, and discovered street art through Thrasher magazine, and then just visiting San Francisco. We lived like 45 minutes outside of San Francisco. But later in life, I started just helping people, with art and stuff, their projects or whatever. And as a student too, it's always like I was the go-to person to help people, kind of dial up their art. And in California, just before I moved to New York, I got to do like a stint at a drug rehab center as a residential center for women. And I was the art therapist there. And it was just so fulfilling because there were a few women that liked art and weren't afraid to like, take these classes. But then there were a lot that were very reluctant. And it was just great to inspire them. So I felt that that was one thing I could really offer to people, is just to inspire, to get them out of their fear of creating art. And so it's something I really enjoy. So coming to India was like a huge gift for me.
Yeah, it's a great mix. It's a great mix. I think what Kunal was saying about different perspectives coming together, but there was a commonality in the way we thought, I think, which has held us together over the last few years.
So in how far has Indian culture influenced your identity? And is there something like Indianness? And how does it reflect in your work?
So I think at Culture Shop, we very much see ourselves as 50% local and 50% global. We don't kind of choose to digest only Indian content or only choose to eat only Indian food. It's all a hybrid now. So we're kind of soaking up Indian identity, but with a global sensibility now. And that's always evolving and changing. And I guess Culture Shop's that vehicle that's documenting that change monthly, weekly, yearly, as the artists respond.
Yeah, Indianness is a pretty broad broad statement. But I think coming down to us and following from what Kunal has said, I think with Culture Shop, we've always been interested in making a statement from India to the world and kind of representing the new India. And that's what we've been committed to over the last few years. And Culture Shop has been that vehicle that Kunal has talked about. And we've just provided a system for artists to be able to express themselves. And that expression is indeed a mix of Indianness, being Indian, being global. And technology and the internet have really accelerated that evolution over the past few years. So it's very exciting times, and we're very proud to represent these artists who are basically, I think, redefining the contours of what it means to be Indian.
Yeah, even at our shops, it's been like Mumbai is such a crossroad of like just meeting so many people. So many people come here to either work from other countries or they come visit. So the Culture Shop's been an amazing place, just the stores, just meeting all these people and then just being so fascinated with the art that we have and the artists, discovering artists. But so many fans of Indian graphic art, or at least, people who become fans before they leave Mumbai. We have a lot of international people also, just, on the internet as well, like just shopping online and really engaging, and wanting to know more about the artists.
At a slightly broader level, Manoj, I feel that it's a great time to be an Indian. I think, if you come back to Indianness, there are a few things that stand out to me. I think our tolerance, certainly the idea of India, the original idea of India, secularism and tolerance. And it's really up to us how we choose to take that path going forward. But we're also very resilient people, very inventive people, and have the ability to laugh at ourselves. And I think that that's served us extremely well in the past few years as India has become more part of the global economy and global society. And the success that Indians have now experienced across many different fields is testament to our values, which really are quite at the core, quite strong.
So can you tell us a bit more about the curation process at Culture Shop?
Curation from the beginning had a 8-point criteria to select work with. And some of those criteria are for work to be culturally relevant, well executed, and so on and so forth. But it really comes down to the work and the artist and what they represent and what they're trying to say in terms of our curation lens. And it's a lens that keeps evolving as new styles are introduced on the platform and new softwares are able to offer us new techniques. We immediately see that translating into the work that enters the platform.
Yeah, the artists are able to also, when we're looking at artists, we're looking at like, are they able to tell story? Are they able to, develop a strong concept as well? Yeah, are they like a lot of our artists, when we're looking for them, they're bold and there's, the whole body should be dynamic. So there's a lot of like intelligent, smart, thought-provoking artists that we have on our
Yeah, I think one of the benefits, Manoj, is visual artists are kind of unique in the fact that they can fairly quickly express their ideas. These ideas can then travel. It's a little difficult for a musician or a filmmaker to do the same thing. So there's almost a responsibility that visual artists have to really be commentators on what's happening in the world. And I think that that responsibility has been taken extremely well by artists. And of course, as I just mentioned, social media has the ability to amplify these messages and ideas. So we are certainly at a time where artists are able to communicate these ideas through technology and the internet and spread these far and wide. And we've I suppose been in the right place at the right time to be able to artists to reflect the Indian mindset.
Yeah, we call this the art of our times. It's so important, and these artists just are so aware, and they act fast. They have the tools, they got the platform.
And there's an endless, infinite amount of talent out there. That's always surprising for us, and we get really excited. Our entire office staff get excited when a new work comes in from an artist. We all get giddy about it. So we really do feel like the artists are an extension of a Culture Shop family. And there's a lot of heart that we bring to Culture Shop as well.
So please tell us a bit more about this year's selection for INDERNET.
Culture Shop's curation this year is look at how India's artists have responded to the pandemic, in both a local view and a global view, as always. And whenever we approach curation for internet, we try and look for silver linings in our catalog of work that's come in. What we did notice is that the arts community started engaging in public awareness much more. We all felt a responsibility to contribute, to educate, to inform. Graphic design and post art. Some of its fundamental rules are to do these things. And we have a mixture of public awareness works, but we also have a couple of works about wellness and also about loneliness. So the gamut of work covers about 4 or 5 bases, but with a very, I would say, Indian lens at what it's talking about or what it's representing. Some of the first pillar in the exhibition lens from other types of visual design, such as wartime posters and truck art typography. And it's a message of we can get through this. So immediately we start off with a take of positivity in the curation, and the work moves into different areas, such as Ranganath Ramakrishna Mani, who's dealing with objects and scenes within them, observed through a lens of, I think, these quiet moments that happen. Another artist like Muhammad Sajid has approached it from quite a different lens, 2 different lenses. One way he was looking at the way flora and fauna can help increase positivity in our well-being. And in another body of work, he's exploring a retro sci-fi Mad Max version of his Kerala series with digitized masks. And there's a real kind of push and pull in that artwork. And it's really something that we've gravitated to as being very strong in the exhibition. It really stands on its own. There are also other artists dealing in wider topics. Mayu Mengle is also showing work about, I guess, isolation. We also have Namrita Prasadia, who's also approaching from a wellness point of view, but very different to Muhammad. And I guess this is the beauty about Culture Shop. All these artists have different viewpoints to provide. And there's also artwork by Ravi Aurora that takes a little more of an informal design approach at public communication. And we love this gamut of approaches to discuss because it really allows the artists to get inspired by each other. Jazz, Urgent, is there a couple of artists that you might want to pick out and say a few words about as well?
Love Zero COVID-19 by Rishidev RK is a wonderful artwork. It depicts what love and new relationships are like during the pandemic. And so it's just showing how technology, how we're relying on technology to just stay connected with people. And also, you know, whether it's like keeping up a new relationship, a new romantic relationship, or a relationship with family, but this depicts a guy and a girl, you know, and how it is every day, right? We're here wearing what we need to wear on top. It doesn't matter what we got on our bottoms because we're, you know, just using the screen right now to communicate, and that's our way of, that's our portal of communication for communication. So it really depicts a really cool way that he's done it. He's a great artist.
Yeah, a couple of the ones that stood out to me, since also Kunal and Jazz have covered some of the others. Varshini Ramakrishnan's work on Good Days Ahead was one of the hopeful pieces of work. And it was quite interesting to see people completely gravitate to that while they were going through a hell of a time during COVID. So the optimism that's come out of that work is quite precious. And then we also
and
have...
if I could just interrupt with that one, it's also really nice because we, through news and just, we saw a lot of people using their balconies now, right? As a form of, you know, getting fresh air, speaking to each other, or just getting a sense of real life using the balconies. So she does that as well in her depiction of what life is like at the moment.
Yeah.
And Manoj, I think it's also interesting for a German audience to see an Indian response to a pandemic. That cultural exchange happens of seeing how different countries are coping with similar or more extreme problems. Sorry, Arjun.
Shantanu's the other one who you're connected to as well and is participating in the internet. And his keep distance mask was a bit of a hit. Very simple truck art message put in the right place at the right time. So those masks have been quite popular, and Shantanu's actually just won one of his many awards for that design. So we were delighted to have that as well.
Wow, so much great output. So how did the pandemic affect the work of the artists and also for Culture Shock, and how did you guys cope with it?
With some of the artists I spoke to during the pandemic, there are quite a few that just had that alone time, that extra time that they could actually use for their art to get into the zone so much. So quite a few of them found that to be like silver lining. There were other artists that were kind of getting settled in because now they had to, like, if they were, like, say, living with family, they kind of had to adjust with, you know, the daily chores or the daily life that, you know, with the household. But I think they got into the groove basically, and quite a few
relatively small issues compared to, you know, what other people have had to deal with.
Yes.
So I think there is certainly some privilege there, but that's not to say it has not been very difficult. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of them have been blessed enough to have projects just coming in. You know, quite a few of them were worried, like, is there going to be now like a standstill, you know, with a flow of work coming in from clients? And some of them actually throughout the pandemic got to work consistently.
We also had the opportunity to actually provide some tangible help recently. Jazz, you want to talk about the Give India collaboration?
Yeah. So with our artists, all of them, you know, were very much wanting to do something just like we were, and I think everybody else. And we felt like, this is also the duty of, every citizen here in India and elsewhere outside of India to just help and just, jump in. So we got 50 artists together within like just a couple of days. And we had them donate one artwork each. So we had a gallery that we put together. It was called Art Fights COVID. And we put together the gallery of 50 artworks. Each artist donated their artist fee that would have normally gone towards, sales. There were some artists who just said, hey, you know what, for the rest of the year, I'm going to just donate my artist fees towards, COVID relief. So we're going to be handling that as well. So we raised a little
about
over
$10,000.
Yeah, $10,000, about $10,000 within a course of 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, let's say. And it was great. So we basically had, we just told people, go ahead and donate the amount that we had a minimum that they should donate, and then they send us proof, and then we send them an artwork, an A3 size artwork of any of the ones that they've picked, from the gallery. And we got a great response. We ended up having to extend it for another couple of days because we still had people trickling in, saying, oh, I know I've missed the deadline, but can I, do this? So we had a lot of people just really, enthusiastic about it. And yeah, it was just a great way. And the artists were really, really happy that they could contribute in this sense.
Yeah, very, very rewarding. And I know that there've been a lot of criticisms of the handling of the pandemic in India over the last few months, and I think one of the things, coming back to Indianness, to see Indian citizens actually getting up and helping on their own was really great to watch. And this was just one small way for us to contribute. And as Jazz mentioned, the artists were absolutely delighted to have the ability to do that and to actually create change. There's a wonderful work by Kunal, which is Citizen is Greater Than the State. And that really rang very, very true in the past few months, where normal citizens stood up and made a difference. It's very heartwarming.
Everybody had that conversation, amongst themselves, like, how do we help? How do we pitch in type of thing? What can we do? So it was just so great to see all kinds of brands, all kinds of organizations, individuals doing their own, initiative. Everyone did something, I feel.
Challenges have been great, I think, for everyone, and we are not excluded. Our business has been hit quite badly. We've had some wonderful stores that have been able to service people. But the changes have been pretty dramatic, and art and technology have really come together in a very different way over the last few months. I speak broadly about NFTs, which do have their challenges on the environmental front and on some other fronts. But digital art, I think, with Sotheby's and Christie's getting into the game and accepting digital art as art, is a huge, huge thing for artists, and opens up completely new vistas of being able to monetize their work. So we take that as a big positive going forward. And beyond that, it's just it's a very different future for the artists as a result of these changes. So something positive always comes out of difficult times, and the movement in this area has been quite fantastic.
So there are more and more South Asian inspired communities outside of India that are connecting a lot, and there's a lot of creative work happening. So in how far is Culture Shop planning to expand and also maybe include work from artists abroad?
There's a great mix of artists on the platform. There's a mix of local artists and global, and they kind of play off each other because they're talking about similar topics but with different perspectives, and that's what's wonderful, because then you get a really wide viewpoint of what the scene is looking like. Or if you could even talk about a global identity forming, you can see hints of it in that. And we do want to expand Culture Shop to a wider base of artists covering South Asian artists, because we feel it's still part of the dialogue, and there's so much rich culture within that diaspora to respond to. So we're super excited to see the work that we've done multiply over time.
Yeah, I think that, yes, definitely there is an intention to expand to South Asian artists. Beyond that, I think there are a few platforms that have been able to connect Indians and South Asians globally. And the internet has actually been a shining light in that area. We do it on a more day-to-day basis. And so our plans have been really to first take Indian art literally to the globe and South Asian art to the globe. We do have plans of opening up gallery stores in other parts of the world, not only in India. So there are plans to open up in places like London, San Francisco, Toronto, Dubai, Singapore, wherever there's a South Asian diaspora. Recognizing also that our work really appeals to global art fans, not specifically to South Asian fans. So that is one thing that we certainly look forward to doing. The second is to really be a catalyst for dialogue across these art communities globally. So to the extent that Culture Shop can enable those conversations, endorse them, sponsor them, we'll be looking to do that as well.
Thanks so much, guys. It was nice talking to you, and I really hope to see you next year in Germany.
Thank you, Manoj, for all the effort you put into internet every year. I do understand that it's a very small team, and you're always trying to push the envelope each year. And it doesn't go unnoticed by us. There's 100 artists on our platform, and there's very few people globally trying to help the movement. You're one of those standout people. So we're very proud of you, and very happy to be part of it.
100%.